Welcome to the Survival Prepper Show, where being labeled a crazy prepper is a badge of honor. Learn about disaster preparedness, survival, and get ready for whatever challenges might come your way. This is not your typical prepping podcast, and they won't be silenced by the censors. Here are your hosts, Duff and Dale.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show. Tonight, I kind of pulled a bonehead move. I've been so used to doing 6 o'clock videos that I scheduled this for 6. So hopefully there's probably going to be a couple people that are a little bit late. Plus, we were a little bit late for our 5 o'clock slot. So yeah, I kind of boned that up. But at any rate, what's going on, Brian? How you doing this week? Been a
Good,
while.
man. Happy Father's Day to you and all the fathers out there.
Yeah. I got to move horse crap, and it's been raining so much out here, like for nonstop for a month, like heavy rain.
Oh, really?
So their horse pens are just slop and shit, and I mean it's just disgusting. So it's fun playing on the tractor, but at some point it's like, okay, enough of this crap. But yeah, got to do a lot of that stuff today. So
yeah, sounds like a good Father's Day
too. Today, we're going to be talking about, I titled this The Distractions and the Deep State and all that, because the deep state, I think, is like this nebulous thing. Some people want to define it as the people behind the scenes pulling the strings. I think it's much bigger than that. We're going to talk about some of the vaccine stuff. You had just mentioned a couple of things to me about the whole JFK Rogan thing. I've got some stuff about fact checkers and even Epstein and all this stuff that's going on that makes us... It gives everybody this illusion that people like us are just out of our damn minds and we're part of the problem, when it's really the opposite. I think that's true, right? Does that kind of seem like
they're gaslighting us, right? That's what everybody who says, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." They're gaslighting you. It's not, more often now than not, conspiracy theorists are being proven right. So again, they're gaslighting everybody on that, telling you that
left and right too.
They're telling you, no, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. We can get into the RFK thing. It's hilarious the amount the amount of people are very pro-vaccine, very like, oh, you still probably need to wear your mask when you go outside. Probably a lot of them here in Southern California. They're living down here in Southern California are out just gaslighting people on. And maybe they don't know, right? Like really what it is if we're honest about, they're the conspiracy theorists now, because they're pushing this fantasy stuff and everything.
Yeah, and it's funny because you were talking about, and I had seen this little beef going on between this doctor that I'd actually never heard of, Peter Hotez, and Rogan. And you had mentioned to me, I watched a little bit of the Rogan Kennedy show when he was talking about vaccines and all sorts of other different things as well. But I don't really know exactly what's going on. It's pretty funny though, with the, when you look at just this tweet you sent me the other day, I guess there's something going on where they're trying to get him on the Rogan show to debate JFK, right?
So what happened was RFK Jr., who's a presidential candidate, and my understanding he's either climbing in the polls or he's past Biden. They did Forbes did a favorability poll. I don't know if it's like who you would vote for, but he was beating Trump and Biden in this favorability poll. My understanding is he's really irritating Biden, and I don't know, irritating, but he's really causing problems with the Democratic Party right now because he's running as a Democrat. He's Bobby Kennedy's son. I mean, so this guy, his uncle was assassinated. His father was assassinated, and he's been an attorney that went way down the rabbit hole on not like, the Al Gore type of environment, but like when the Hudson River was catching on fire back in the 70s, and it was green or blue, whatever chemicals they were dumping into it. He went down and he was big into suing companies so they could restore this watershed. Anyhow, he was on Rogan last week. And if you're a truth seeker when it comes to the vaccines, if you're a truth seeker if you're of like-minded people when it comes to COVID, the military industrial complex, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, all that stuff, it's probably one of the best podcast episodes I've ever listened to. It's fascinating. And the vaccine stuff goes for about 2 hours because he's long been an opponent of vaccines, at least when he's and where he is like, hey, you know, vaccine companies, you're putting stuff in it that's bad for people. And he's showing the stats of changes. You know, he talks about in the podcast how back like when we were young, you would have like 1 in 10,000 people. Now it's 1 in 37. And he's tracing a lot of that back to the vaccines. And he said like nobody up until this show with Rogan has ever let him or given him the opportunity to speak soup to nuts about vaccines. Then they get into the military industrial complex. What he thinks is wrong with government and all this stuff. Well, Rogan did an interview with this guy, Dr. Peter Hotez. And I think he was a little bit of anti-vax early on in the pandemic. And then he flipped the script and he's all in on vaccines. Well,
he got paid.
Right. Well, he did. One of the people on Twitter went and found like all the donations that had been made to his organization by the Bill Gates Foundation, millions of dollars that this guy got. Right. And so he's testified before Congress and he runs around. Well, he was on Rogan a while back and was promoting the vaccines, and Rogan kept like trying to get him to show evidence of what he was saying about the efficacy of vaccines. And he could come up with nothing. And then Rogan kind of got onto him a little bit because Rogan's like, well, what about vitamin D? What about living a healthy lifestyle? Because this guy's shoving McDonald's down his throat. And the guy's like, well, I think we should just do vaccines. Like Rogan's like, that's insane. So anyhow, Hotez comes up in the interview with RFK Jr. and they kind of shit on him. Like, yeah, he doesn't prove anything. He doesn't come with anything to back him up. So Hotez goes on to this Peter Hotez guy, this pro-vaccine guy, goes on to Twitter and lights up Rogan and RFK Jr. Like, you know, basically accuses of misinformation, you know, the typical crap that they're doing out there to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Rogan responds and says, well, hey, I'll tell you what, why don't you come on the show and I'll have you debate. You can debate RFK Jr. 3 hours, debate it all, bring whatever you need to prove yourself, bring all your facts, come on, debate. And he goes, I'll donate $1,000 to whatever charity that you want me to donate money to, whatever cause you want me to donate money to. So that was like yesterday afternoon. Well, then you can see by this chart here, all these other influencers who are on the same narrative, right? Like, hey man, like you're pushing this bullshit on us, start jumping in with how much they're donating. So now, as earlier today by like, I don't know, it was like noon, I think today, it was up to over $1.5 million. Like, there you go. That was earlier today. I don't know what it's at now, but it was up to 1.5 million. They're willing to donate or give to some cause that Dr. Peter Hotez, you know, feels that he caused to have that guy come on and debate RFK Jr. on the show. And he's like, you know, and people are like, well, why would this scientist want to debate somebody who's not a scientist? And, you know, and then the response is, well, if he's a scientist and knows his shit, then it shouldn't be a problem. But like, he's sitting there backpedaling, trying to like, won't take him up on it. And it's hysterical to read these threads on Twitter. I'll tell you, everybody, if you're on Facebook, you're on this and you're on social media, go get on Twitter. Twitter is the dumpster fire of free speech. Like, people are just on there all day long on this stuff. And it's fabulous. If you're into this, you get information. Like, there's stuff that happens. You'll catch it on Twitter and see discussions about it 3 or 4 days before it appears on any mainstream, legacy media outlet kind of stuff. And you'll see what was really going on. So anyhow, back to the RFK thing. It's hysterical. The pro-vaccine, COVID still a problem. My dad took his dog to the vet down here in LA today or yesterday. And they make you wear a mask in the veterinary clinic. Right? Like, and they say if you argue or there's cursing or you don't wear it, like, we'll kick you out. Like, there are literally fucking idiots out there still running around in this mindset. So it's a fascinating thing, I think, and people have commented it's a huge turn in the public debate, because I think this kind of stuff's going to keep going on. Like, hey, come on to these shows and debate people and see what you get. And Peter Hotez, he knows he doesn't have a leg to stand on. He never backs his shit up with facts, or he rarely, my opinion is, he never backs his stuff up with facts and studies, and he can't debate RFK Jr. And the only thing he has to go on is, well, I'm a scientist and I'm a doctor. You're not. Why would I debate you?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And that doesn't mean what it used to anymore,
No.
I don't think, because there's so much money and all these, all of these organizations and people can be paid off by big pharma has become such a big machine these days. You don't know who to trust, who not to trust, because just because he's a scientist and really knows his stuff doesn't mean he's expressing his true feelings about stuff. So
Dude,
you just don't know anymore, and you need
Bill
that
Gates
debate.
Bill Gates gave the guy hundreds of, and when I say hundreds of thousands of dollars multiple times. This guy got, and all of a sudden now he's out singing the story, right? So, and it's there are people like Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, who they're jumping in and like, hey, we'll help you search for your facts. Like we'll give you all the science you'd need to search for your facts to do this. And he doesn't want anything to do with it. But if you haven't seen the episode with RFK, it's a 3-hour episode and it's wall to wall good information for the kind of information that we like. If you haven't seen that Joe Rogan episode, it's episode 1999. I guess it's 2000's coming out this week. If you haven't seen that episode, I recommend everybody go watch it. And if you like what you hear, share it. To me, it's one of the most consequential episodes to put a stake in the heart of this bullshit that they're still trying to promote and run down. He shits all over Biden. He talks about, they get into everything on that stuff. So it's a really good episode.
Yeah. And there's you've seen a lot of that type of thing going on recently, which is kind of cool. I like Tucker Carlson more now that he's not on Fox News. On his little Twitter thing, he's done a couple of them that have just been completely spot on. The first one he did, talking about the military industrial complex and all the collusion and corruption and all that crap, was just fantastic. You've got Tulsi Gabbard out there basically saying the same types of things. And then you've got, like you were talking about with these influencers, all these influencers kind of speaking up as well. And you've got this whole machine that is trying to shut all of this crap down. And I suppose, like, historically, this is sort of the way they've done things. It's just been a whole lot easier. Like throughout society, you got to appease the masses. You got to, quell the uprising and all that stuff. And before, the way they used to do it was different. These days, there's too much access to information. So they've got to just try to shut everything down with the fact checkers. I've got an article on that too. Fact checkers and even the World Health Organization, the UN and all that, trying to shut, basically censor everything. And if we're not careful with all these mind controlled drone people that you were talking about, they're still wearing the mask and stuff. If we're not careful, that's exactly where we're going. We're going to the whole 1984 Ayn Rand picture. Pick your dystopian future novel. I mean, that's exactly where we're going.
Oh yeah, and dude, it's amazing because like with Tucker, his first episode, I'm looking at it right now. His first episode on Twitter, so he has 4 episodes that he's come out with. His first episode was 118 million views. His second episode, 58 million. His last episode is at 198 million, and his last one now is at 30 million. And he is on full blast. And I don't think he's making a dime off it because I think he's running into contract problems where he can't make money anywhere else. But he's giving his opinion, and Fox sent him a cease and desist notice, and he was like, I think he took it to the bathroom and wiped his ass with it. Right. And so he's on there on full blast. It's great. Trump just came out the other day on Twitter and responded to what Tucker said. And Tucker is laying waste to the military industrial complex, to Biden. The last episode with Biden, he pretty much goes in there and is like, just, like he says it like tongue in cheek. Like, of course, Biden's not a dictator. Like, if he was a dictator, he would do stuff like target his opponents to try to get him locked up before the campaign. Kind of thing, and all that stuff. And just, he is on full blast. I'm telling you, if you're into social media and you like the Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, the place to get the most current and update back and forth and all that stuff is Twitter. It's again, I think all social media needs to go away. But if you want the latest and greatest information out there, and that you can't get it from mainstream media, go to Twitter. And hey, if you go to Twitter, make sure you follow Mind for Survival at Twitter. And the Brian Duff.
Yeah. Speaking of that whole thing, I actually have the clip here, and I thought it was hilarious because in this, Fox News fired their producer. This is the beginning of his, hopefully this is the video, I'll play it, but Fox News, one of their producers put this is actually a real clip as well. The wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested. They had this up for about 30 seconds, and then they took the damn thing down, which I think is hilarious. Oh, this isn't the video. I thought this was the. Oh, here's the video right here. Let me see if I'll play this. Let me see if I can
Tuesday
get
afternoon, the
on. There
Biden administration had Donald Trump arrested. It was a pretty big news story. You may have seen it. Just before 9 p.m. that night, as part of its coverage, Fox News ran 2 live video feeds next to one another. On the right, Donald Trump addressed his supporters in New Jersey. On the left, Joe Biden spoke at an event for the Secretary General of NATO in Washington. Beneath those videos at the bottom of the screen, Fox's banner read this way, quote, "Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested." Those words were up for less than 30 seconds, but the effect was immediate. Inside Fox, the women who run the network panicked. First, they scolded the producer who put the banner on the screen. Less than 24 hours after that, he resigned.
Oh, gotta turn that off. I just think that's freaking hilarious that Fox is like imploding, and I haven't watched it for crap. I mean, he's the only one. I don't even watch The Five or Gutfeld, which I really like. So I think
I watch a little bit. I watch a little bit of it in the morning when I drink my coffee just to see, hey, what's going on, because they have that show with Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino, and they're usually fairly good. But no, I mean, we talked about this on the show 2 years ago, how, Fox, the senior leadership at Fox had all gone woke, and they were just putting up with it because they were making money. But they don't know what to do now, because so where Tucker Carlson gets 100 million views, and RFK Jr. talks about it in the episode with Rogan on Rogan's show. He's like, Fox News will get like 350,000 viewers, or CNN will get 350,000 viewers on a show, like one of their main shows on, on prime time. And here you got Tucker Carlson getting tens of millions of views on Twitter. They're crushing them. Same Rogan. They can't compete with this. And I don't know, man. I look at the Twitter thing and you think it's going into the election, and we'll see how it keeps going with Twitter. But so far, it's really awesome to have a place. We left YouTube, right? Because why? Like, we're getting shut down. They literally like deleted videos that we had put up from years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so the same thing's happening on Facebook. The same thing's happening on Instagram. So to have a place that you can go that you can get fairly reliable information is huge. And I think it's so important. Hold your hand up if you don't think there's going to be shenanigans as we move forward from once we hit November. Once campaign season swings into full force, you don't think there's going to be shenanigans going on? Where are you going to get the truth?
We're already seeing it.
Oh yeah, well there already is. Yes, 100%. I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see them though drop. They're going to drop it down into overdrive and start even more. I mean, dude, that's what RFK Jr. was talking about on the show. He's like, almost all of his, Theo Vaughn, the comedian, right? Kind of the young guy from Louisiana. He's a super nice, super chill guy. He did an episode of RFK Jr. and they pulled his video down. Like RFK Jr. can't get any of his videos out there. They keep pulling them down. So no, I think the fact that you can get that on Twitter right now is epic.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's like the Biden Justice Department or whatever, like silencing this crap, or if it's all the organizations that feed. That's part of the deep state that I was talking about. That's much bigger and much more nebulous than than people want to define it. But if it's organizations that are responsible for just shutting down that narrative, and then you've got the whole Trump indictment, and I really don't. I mean, they're throwing so many darts at that dude that I don't know what to think from one time to the next. But I do know that the timing of this, I mean, it's all too perfect how all of this stuff is going down right now.
Dude, the day they come out and they say they have tapes on Biden and his getting his $5 million and Hunter getting his $5 million is literally that happened hours before they went after Trump. Is that a coinky dink? I don't believe in coincidence anymore when it comes to this stuff, right? And so you mentioned, is it like, I don't know if it's organizations, who it is. They're all in collaboration. Go back and look at the Twitter files that Matt Taibbi put out. It's why the IRS decided to target Matt Taibbi and subject him to an IRS audit and the IRS audit was initiated on December 26th, which was a Saturday, the day before Christmas, when the federal government's on a holiday. That's when they initiate an IRS audit of Matt Taibbi, right? When he's talking before Congress and they send an IRS agent to his house. I think they're all in collusion. We know Stanford has that organization up there that's running like the manifold for making sure all the social media gets online, right? Look at Twitter files. They're all acting in concert. Half of the people who run a lot of the senior spots in the social media world are former like CIA people and people that were part of the deep state. So no, it's all 100% intermingled. It's a corporate government merging. It's the oligarchy that's happening out there.
It's the way to get around the pesky Constitution. It's a way to get around, skirt all the laws, the campaign laws, and all that stuff. It's the perfect way to do that because you can't pin something on him necessarily, even though with all this Burisma crap and everything going on, you would think that would be the big deal. But we missed the show last week. I was going to ask you your thoughts on the UFO, that whole UFO whistleblower thing. But that timing, exactly what we were just talking about. To me, the timing of that and with the Burisma stuff coming out and then all of a sudden the Trump stuff all seemed almost like and the dude that was a whistleblower had to get permission to whistleblow. So I was like, okay, this is like the worst distraction I think I've ever seen from them. But what are your thoughts on that? Did you watch any of that? Do you think that guy's credible at all, or
I watched it a little bit. I believe in, like, hey, we've talked about on the show a bunch, and hey, everybody, I know we got a bunch of people showing up. If you would make sure you hit the like button, it helps us out. But I've when you look at it, we've talked about on the show where like I think like I would not doubt that the Tic Tac ship, all these spaceships they keep seeing are ours, right? Because again, we can give the reasons why, but it's ultimately we're just acting like, oh, everything. No, I don't know what this stuff is, but they're always messing with our Navy and our planes where we know what their response is going to be and stuff. So I think if you remember back into the days to stealth was around for a long time before anybody ever knew it. Right. So everybody thinks, I think our country probably does a rope-a-dope. As dumb as we think our leadership is and how many times the Chinese hack us and all this stuff, I think it's a little bit of the rope-a-dope, right? Like, I think they are in a way keeping some programs so secretive that they let all this other stuff out because, okay, we're giving up that information, but we're going to keep this really well hidden. So everybody thinks that they're getting a treasure trove when really the prime stuff is being hidden. So again, I think my personal opinion is that we own the Tic Tac ship and that all this UFO, like you said, is a distraction. Because what aren't you hearing about in the mainstream media much, right? Ukraine did their big counteroffensive. Not you're like, oh, they've captured this and captured that. Ukraine's out at like giving them all this armor and we're giving all this shit, but Ukraine's out of troops, right? They're drafting and press ganging, going around the streets and grabbing people from like the age of 16 to 60 now. Like that's what Germany did when towards the end of the war. So there's all these different distractions, like you say, that are happening because they don't want you to know what's truly happening out there. They're trying to keep everybody, it's the illusion. What's the right hand doing while the left hand's going around, setting up the trick. Yeah.
And it's easier than ever for these guys to do it these days because the media is hook, line, and sinker right along with them. Oh, we can't. You don't want us to talk about that? Okay, we won't talk about that. You want us to talk about this? We'll talk about that. I've noticed, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I've noticed on the media these days, you'd never used to hear about just random shootings and things like that, right? Especially in the inner cities. People just didn't care to report on that. But it seems like every day on the news now, and I think this is part of that whole agenda thing of getting that, just pushing all this crap out there constantly and getting people aware of it. But you hear about just the randomest stuff on the news these days, and I think it's kind of like, okay, we're not going to talk about this because this isn't the agenda we want to push, but we're going to talk about this because this is the type of thing. Goes into the LGBTQ crap too. Same type of thing.
Yeah, no, on the UFO thing, Rob in the chat mentions that the Vegas UFO sounded like a hoax. Yeah, I think the alien thing, there was some blue light that a bunch of people saw fly over the city. I think when that thing, whatever it was, happened, I think you had some people that saw it and said, "Hey, let's call the cops and say we see aliens in our backyard." Yeah, maybe not, but it kind of seemed hokey. But yeah, the mainstream media, they want to talk about LGBTQ plus IA, CIA, NSA, and all their shit that they want to push, and then like here in LA, I drove down the street in LA when I was growing up as a kid. LA was a beautiful city. The streets were clean. There was manicured medians. Like the trees were shaped nice. Everything was nice. There's fucking garbage everywhere. There's weeds growing out everywhere. It looks like a shithole. It just looks like a shithole. But you know what? They have the money to spend on a big LGBTQ blah, 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 blah sign that they all shiny it, they string over the town. It's like, dude, your priorities are so fucked up. And, we talked about on the show when we were over talking with Tad and Grumpy the other day, it's that those communities, they don't even really get like the whole trans thing. A huge chunk of the trans community, probably more than that, are pushing it, are like, what are you doing? The gay community, like there's groups called Gays Against Groomers, right? Again, they're pushing this agenda on us, and it's, I think when you see like the Rogan stuff that's happening right now, I think they're more and more they're running out of rope. What is that? What do you think what does that open for them to try next?
Yeah, I think that it someday, and this is, maybe not, maybe this goes all the way down this path of dystopia. But I think at some point, maybe these media companies or things are going to get so bad that people are going to start waking up and see that big pharma is actually the devil, and corporations have no business trying to run your everyday life and all that crap. Mm-hmm. So I think hopefully that starts to happen, and it is going to take all these people just speaking up and talking about these different things and saying, hey, don't believe the bullshit. Do the research yourself. Don't just go watch your news program. Don't just go read the New York Times or whatever and then have that make up your opinion for you. Go out and listen to some people that you don't necessarily agree with. See what happens. This doctor dude, if he'd just go debate, I don't give a crap whether the other people he's debating or not aren't scientists or not. If they know their stuff, have a debate with them. And if you know so much more than them, you should be able to put them in their place really freaking easily.
Well, that's the problem, right? The whole thing is bukkake theater, right? They can't debate because they know their argument is full of shit. And we're talking about like they're not reporting on things. So I'm doing an article for a podcast episode this way, and it's this week, and I'm talking about the Daniel Penny, the former Marine sergeant that choked the guy to death on the subway. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's a tragedy all around. Like that guy that was on the subway, Jordan Neely, want to talk about a failure of the system. When the kid was 14, his mother was strangled to death by her boyfriend, stuffed in a suitcase and tossed out on the side of the road. And right after this, Jordan Neely started having problems. Well, he's been out of jail for years. Did they ever take the opportunity to help that dude out with his mental care? Nope. Right. The system didn't do that because they don't want the cure. It's just like it's like the vaccine, all the bullshit. Right. So then now what do? You force these citizens that are riding the subway to feel that they're in a position where they have to defend themselves. And here, this is just a few of the headlines from the last year about New York City subways. And about half of them are in the last month. Man found suffering from fatal stab wounds on New York City subway. When you're found suffering from fatal stab wounds, it means you're fucking right. New York City subway passenger 50 targeted in gang assault. Award-winning artist 35 instantly paralyzed in subway New York City subway shove. Man attempts to rape woman on New York subway in Lower Manhattan. Man accused in deadly New York City subway stabbing released without bail 2 days after incident. New York City subway crime. Man slashed across face at train station in Manhattan. New York City subway crimes. jumps 30%, defying surge in police patrols. Well, with Daniel Penny and them, when he choked this dude out, who was acting, by all counts, he was acting crazy, saying he didn't care if he goes to jail, he wanted to assault people. Had there been a cop on that subway, and I'm not faulting the police, right? Because New York has the exodus of cops because they're treating their cops like shit. They're not giving them the training. They're not doing everything, right?
And all that, yeah.
Had they had a cop on that subway, someone could have gotten the cop and said, "We got a problem down here." Daniel Penny hung on to that dude for I think it was 8 to 10 minutes. A cop could have been there and said, "Hey, I got this. Back off." So it's not the fault of Daniel Penny. It's the fault of the system. But they don't want to talk about this violence on the mainstream media because it points out their city, CNN hanging out in New York, all the people that they suck dick with when they go out to their little, champagne drinks and hang out and they talk about how great the world is. No, that they don't want to put this stuff out there. Instead, what they want to do is they want to say, "Hey, Daniel Penny, a white guy, choked out a black guy." They forget to mention that there were 2 other people there helping Daniel Penny out. One was black and one was brown. They don't want to mention that. So got to take race whenever possible. And if it's the reverse of that, they don't mention race at all in the story. And it's time and time again that type of crap happens. Yeah. I tell you what they ought to do is all the judges and district attorneys in New York, they ought to make them take the subway to work every day for a month and then see if some shit changes after that. Because I imagine a bunch of district attorneys are armed, right? They're law enforcement, or they'll make sure there's security there, and then they'll go, "See, nothing happened to us." Yeah, it's the game they play. It's always the game they play. It's like the movie stars out in Hollywood who spend $1 million or $500,000 a year on private security. Oh yeah, why don't you all give up your guns? Like, what's the problem? Dude, they live in Bel Air, they live in rich areas, and they still have armed protection.
Yeah. It'd be like me saying, because I live out here in a somewhat rural area, that crime isn't that bad. It's not as bad as you think it is. Whereas anytime I go into Denver, I just get nervous, and it's not scared. It's just my senses. It's like my senses get peaked, and it's like, oh crap, here we go. Now we're in this freaking city. Who knows what the hell is going to happen? And Denver isn't even as bad as LA or New York or Chicago, anything like that.
So I downloaded a couple weeks ago. I downloaded the free version of the Citizen app, right? And you don't get all the bells and whistles, but it gives you enough of an overview. So where I live at, my dad in the 1970s paid like 20 something grand for the house. All the Hollywood crowd moved in here in the last 20 years. And now there's like $2 and $3 million, $4 million homes all around this place. But you go out and it's all the fucking Karens hanging out, doing their thing in the street, and they live in this like little, it's kind of like sort of supposed to be like this, this area where you got multi-million-dollar homes now. And so there shouldn't be a lot of crime here. But dude, like, in the last day, it was someone down on the boulevard 2 blocks down, it's Colorado Boulevard, which is Route 66, throwing rocks at cars. Another person that set a car on fire. Another person, like a person with a knife chasing somebody. Like, dude, every day, all kinds of crime going here. And it's in an area where all these fucking Karens live. This isn't down in East LA. I mean, you go down to those areas, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Right. And they're all like, "Oh no, everything's fine." You got Gascon here letting people out of jail, not prosecuting people, which again, it puts the citizens, it puts us into the position where we have to take action to defend ourselves and others. Literally, they're hammering. They don't want Daniel Penny. They don't want Good Samaritans stopping this. It's part of their agenda. Did you see George Soros's kid took over the George Soros empire? See that?
Oh yeah, I did see something vaguely about that. Where he's following in his father's footsteps regardless. So it's just a younger version.
He said he's going to ramp up the amount of political shit he does. Now that he has the baton that his dad handed the reins over to him, he said he's going to increase his fuckery. So, the people here that are suffering and getting jacked by crime is a direct result of a George Soros DA that won't prosecute people.
Yeah. And it's the priorities. That's what makes me think it's all intentional. It's not the fact that the whatever his name, the mayor of California or whatever, the guy that wants to be president,
Gavin Newsom, the governor.
Newsom, yeah. It's not the fact that he just cares more about the social issues and the LGBTQ and all of that, the global, the climate change and all that stuff. It's not just that. It's the fact that it's intentional with all of this crap going on, the complete decay of the city. I know he probably doesn't want it to be as bad as it is, especially like San Francisco. I mean, that's unrecognizable to what it used to be. But at the same time, it's almost like something that it just has to be. And as long as we're pushing these social issues, nobody's going to pay attention to that crap. And as long as we tell people that you can't be discriminatory against homeless people and, all those, the ideals and thoughts that they come up with and talk about, and people, the Karens, are like, yeah, that's true. Until it really affects them, and then it's not true. But I think it's all intentional. And when you have these DAs, when you have all of these organizations that are pushing all this crap, I think it's all intentional. I think I don't know that there's, with this next election, I don't know, like you said earlier, shenanigans going on. I don't know that there's any hope that it's not going to go in a bad direction. I think it's kind of already pre-planned, and maybe that's just me being a complete pessimist about the whole thing.
No, I don't think so. But I mean, because look, you mentioned San Francisco. I don't think. I mean, obviously Nancy Pelosi had somebody break in her house and smack her husband with a hammer in the head, right? But I think at the same time, most of those people making the rules, they don't live in. They're not seeing this shit. Right. They ride in the back of the car. They live in an area. If you have enough money to run for San Francisco City Council or congressperson or something like that, you have enough money not to live in the middle of the shit. It's like where I'm at. You go 2-3 blocks the other way. It's great. Like there's shit going on. You come 2 blocks up and it's really, you have some car break-ins and stuff, which obviously is sucks. But it's not as bad. So they come home and they live on their little oak-lined streets, and they got their kids running around with their little helmets on their bikes because, you don't want all this shit that they do. I was thinking about this the other day. We need to go back. What was the greatest period in our lifetimes for people our age? Probably in the late 80s and early to mid 90s, right? Yeah. And we need to go back to, I think we need to go back to some of that, like this woke ideology, like the woke, you need to use this word. You can't say that word. Fuck you. You know what happened? You know what we used to do back in the 80s? I called a lot of people fags. If you're acting like an idiot, you're a fag. It has nothing to do with being gay. You were just a fag. And now it's like, oh, you're not supposed to say that. Fuck you. Let's take our country back with the shit, right? Like this is, maybe we have to go back to where Miami Vice, pastel colors and shit like that. I don't know. But what we're doing now, if everything that we do now leads to what the problem that we have, maybe we need to go back to a time when what we did led to better times. Right? What filled those equations to equal good times?
Yeah. That's funny. I used to say gay all the time. That's gay. That's gay. And it had nothing to do with homosexuality or anything. I said it so much. I even had a gay friend. He was like, you just say that and not even know you're saying that? And I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry. Does that bother you?
Must be gay that I said that.
Yeah, it's just, it's slang. That's all it was. It's not derogatory. But yeah, you're right. These days, it's the whole sticks and stones thing. These days, it's worse to offend somebody, to hurt somebody's feelings, than it is to break into their store, steal all their shit, beat the crap out of them, and do things like that. It's worse to misgender somebody. It's worse to do all that.
Well, they try to make you believe it's worse, right? Like, again, I grew up in a very racially diverse area. It's a lot of Asians, a lot of Hispanics, mostly Mexican in the area, a few blacks and whites. It's really, dude, I got called so much shit as growing up because that's just the way everybody talked. It didn't fucking bother me.
Yeah.
Right. And it didn't bother the other ones, the other people when you throw shit back. And now if they've turned it in, well, no, you should be bothered. Right. Oh, you want to wear your blue hair. If someone says, hey, yeah, that's fucking kind of wild hair. Oh, you should be offended. Everybody's like, they want everybody to try to be offended now. I think, again, it's they're creating these problems by weapon. It's the double speak. It's the 1980, the 1984 shit. Like, hey, no, this is what you can and can't say. So I think we need to go back to, don't need to be mean. But if someone wants to take it as being mean, I can't control that you get upset because I say fag in your presence. Like, sounds like you need to toughen the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't it Newsom that just put a law into place or a bill or something about hairstyles? And you can't discriminate over hairstyles
No, man.
now?
No, it wasn't Newsom. You know who it was? Governor of Texas.
Was it? Oh, it was.
Yeah,
Texas.
it was Greg
Yeah.
Abbott. It was Greg Abbott, Mr.
California.
fucking conservative, Mr. supposedly conservative, right? Which,
Yeah.
hey, man, I don't think you should be able to discriminate on person by their appearance, right? But that he's the one who put it in. It wasn't even Newsom. That's funny that you isn't that interesting though that you're like, oh, wasn't that Newsom that did that? Nope, it was
some crazy California shit right there.
Yeah, no, Greg Abbott.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous though because as people we discriminate against everybody. I mean, this is just what we do. Fat people, short people, tall people, ugly people, pretty people, whatever. We judge people all the damn time. So it's not necessarily a discriminatory thing like race or anything. I guess it could be for some people. But it gets to the point of like the Demolition Day movie that we did a review on.
Demolition Man.
It's going to get to the point where you can't say a fucking thing about anything.
Well, you know, like when it comes to the hair thing, like if I'm running a business, like I grew like punks back in the day, and I don't mean punks like you're a punk, like punk rock people back in the day. So when I was growing up, we had all kinds of people running around with the orange super spiked mohawks and studded leather jackets and all that shit. They went down and they smashed into each other and all the shit that they did as being punk rock guys. But if I'm running some sort of business, I don't want a dude with a giant fucking orange mohawk being my greeter at the front of the business.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, so yeah, you shouldn't discriminate. Again, like we all know that's fucked up to do that. But at the same time, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
You know, with some of this shit.
Well, and there is, a difference between like somebody with a big afro and somebody with a mohawk. I mean, it's kind of intentional with the mohawk, but yeah, I just think it's going down that path of oh, this hurts my feelings, this hurts my feelings, this hurts my feelings, and it's like, we used to be able to solve the problems ourselves, and there used to be the whole peer pressure thing where if somebody was talking shit about somebody's hair or whatever, a group of people would let them know that you're an idiot. But these days, it's everything's illegal. You can't do anything these days. It seems like it's getting to that point where
they're trying
for everything.
They're trying. Well, and that's part of the problem with the country, right? Is lawyers. Lawyers have been we've allowed attorneys to run the show for a long time. The ambulance chasers. Oh, somebody doesn't like the way you say, we're going to sue you, and there's no repercussions for that shit. Mm-hmm. Like, why don't we have a board that when someone sues you, if it's determined, like if they lose the lawsuit and it's determined that it was a frivolous lawsuit, that attorney, hey, you should have known that was frivolous. Fuck you. You lose your license for 6 months or a year and eventually for good. Oh, you brought a lawsuit, so-and-so against somebody because you just want to be vindictive. Oh, fuck you. Now you got problems. But we don't do that, right? We enable everybody to be fucked up towards one another. We're trying to legislate We're trying to legislate people's feelings. You can't say that because it might bother somebody. Can't do this. I mean, all this shit. Again, this is they're trying to gut our society. And we talked about it on the show that when we were on with Tag the other time, the last week, right? It's cyclical. They're not gonna, and that cyclical goes back to the pendulum swings we have, right? So they're not gonna like this pendulum, and we may not like the pendulum swing when it comes back the other way.
Yeah. It's everyone wanting their problem solved. This problem, that problem, everything, and it all leads to bigger government. It all leads to and bigger legal systems and lawyers and all that stuff. And we'll figure out we'll make sure this doesn't happen to you. We'll make sure everyone wants that safety. And with that safety, it's those restrictions that just completely grow on you. You don't have a choice with anything you do. You got to watch what you got to watch what you say. You got to watch what you drive. You got to watch who you talk to. I mean, all those different things. That's where we're going. It's insane.
Well, it's when you think about the trans thing, dude, I've been thinking about lately, and what happens. So I have a friend who had a family member that went in and was like feeling, just struggling. Like a younger person was struggling with shit. Like wasn't a kid, but in their 20s, been struggling with shit and just, dude, I think needed some mental help. Goes into the therapist, and in the first session, the therapist is like, oh yeah, you're trans. Has this person convinced they're trans. Rather than going, hey, you got some problems, work at it. Trust me, I've been through a lot of therapy with the post-traumatic stress, right? And your first month, 2 months, 3 months, they're just getting to know you. They're trying to figure you out so they can like, okay, how can we start working with stuff? One session, oh, you're fucking trans. You need to wear heels and start sucking dick. No, right? What is it? It's an easy out for them. Like, oh, look, I figured you out. I get a win. Yeah. They're not doing their job. Right? They're not trying to go, hey, what is actually going on with you? You know, there was a while back, there was a Navy SEAL, like a legit badass. He was a member of the Dev Group, basically SEAL Team 6. And he came out as a trans dude. And now he's not. And he goes back in and talks about it. And he's like, dude, I was so fucked up at the time. I go in and literally they're pushing me to be trans. I'm like, oh, well, I guess maybe it is. Because think about it, when you're going to a therapist, you're probably, you know, where you're truly fucked up, you're having a tough time thinking. You're having a tough time figuring things out. Oh, well, they're a professional. They tells me. So that dude's talking about, he comes out, next thing you know, he's wearing fucking women's shoes and dresses. And then goes down the road a year or two and he's getting a bunch of help. And he's like, oh, no, that's not me. Right? It's our system. And they're virtue signaling by let's put you in fucking pumps or get you to cut your dick and your tits off.
Yeah. I was reading something the other day and I can't remember what it was. And I don't know, you know, how factual they were, if they were, you know, just like everyone does these days, it takes different stats out of the big picture. But they were talking about how the pharmaceutical industry makes so much money off of it, not just having somebody be trans, but all of those different surgeries, all the hormone therapies, all of that different stuff. And I was also thinking about, and I don't know if it's the channels that I watch, but it seems like all the pharmaceutical commercials are about, you know, medicines for gay people and things like that. And I'm like, dude, this really seems like it's dangerous.
Well, yeah, they're telling you, hey, get your HIV so it's undetectable. They don't say so it's not present, it's undetectable, right?
Undetectable, yeah.
And you know, and this isn't to say that if you're a parent and you have a kid that says, hey, I think I'm a dude trapped in a chick's body or a chick trapped in a dude's body and starts going down that road, that you should be an asshole, you know? Be supportive, get them the help to figure it out. Maybe they are, you know, maybe after a year, it's like, oh yeah, you are trans. But maybe there's probably a really good likelihood that, you know what, they're just having a fucking tough time and their brain is going fucking, you know, going in catawampus. Yeah. But they want to embrace, dude, think about it, man. And I don't know if this is everywhere in every state, but in California, if you're a minor, you can't just go in and get a fucking tattoo. But they're trying to push a law through that if you want to cut your dick and your tits off and you're a parent and you don't support that you can get into trouble and they can pull your kids away. And then at 16, you can have all that shit happen, or whatever age. So can't get a tattoo, can't buy cigarettes, can't buy a gun, but you can mutilate your fucking body if you think so after just barely talking to some fucking therapist or some psychiatrist that doesn't really want to do their job.
Yeah. Wasn't it California too that there's some sort of law that they're trying to put through, a self-emancipation law? Any kid that's 12 years old and goes to school, they can actually, and tell their teacher they want to be emancipated. The teachers can do that without the parents' consent or knowledge or anything. I believe.
I don't know. I haven't heard. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, hey, after all, they'll give you a fucking tent and a curb to shit on, so you sleep and shit on, so you'll be good.
Yeah. But that goes back to the priorities we've been talking about, because as a 12-year-old kid, how many 12-year-old kids have run away from home because they're pissed off at their mom and dad or whatever, and then after spending a few hours overnight, they decide, screw this, I'm going back home. Wasn't that bad. But now they could just go to the teacher and then the teacher step in. It's all separating the kids from their parents, the children becoming wards of the state.
Well, did you catch the thing that Biden said a little while ago? Goes, oh, they're not my kids. They're our kids. Like talking about your kids. Yeah. They're our kids. Like you're some socialist, communist fucking collective that, no, they're all our children. Yeah. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
You got teachers talking like that too, the teachers unions and things like that. They're talking about how we are responsible for training them. That's the whole grooming thing as well. We're responsible for all this stuff. We got to get them while they're young. We got to make sure the parents can't be trusted to put our narrative into place. So we need to take control of these kids, and they feel justified doing that crap too. But I think that's one of those steps too far that I've seen a lot of parents getting upset about recently is the going after the kids and doing all that crap. And I hope that shit just keeps up, because that is the point where, some of this stuff that has been going on for the last few years, and it ramped up right when it started to ramp up with Obama, with men and women's bathrooms. Then it sort of died down, and then it's just like full force with Biden. But I lost track of where the hell I was. But the parents, you see them sort of getting amped up about this stuff, and it starting to go in the right direction. And that's where it kind of started for me. You hear these things about the drag shows and kid-friendly drag shows and all this crap, and it's like, okay, now you put the kids in there, and the kids shouldn't have any part of any of this stuff, and that's when. But that's how they drag you in.
They try to say there's nothing wrong with going to a family-friendly drag show for kids. Drag show, it equals sexual, like, whatever you want to call it, but it's a sexuality. It's a sexual-driven show, right? They're shaking their ass, dude. I mean, you look at the stuff that they had in the Pride parades. It's my problem when people talk about their whole Pride parade shit. When I was in Atlanta and I was working as a paramedic in Atlanta, they had a big Pride parade down there, and you got people fucking each other on the sidewalks and others that are in the parade. It's not a family-friendly bullshit. Yeah. Right. So, it's, and Chris or Jammer says in the chat that the Navy SEAL I was talking about is Chris Beck. If you want to watch a good episode and hear this guy talk and explain a bunch of his shit, is go over to the Sean Ryan Show. It's a podcast. It's on YouTube. Does a really good job. Sean Ryan's a former SEAL, former CIA guy, and all that. Has Chris on there talking. And again, Chris Beck was a legitimate badass. Like, this guy, you don't become a part of Dev Group of SEAL Team 6 for being a slouch. So go check that shit out. It's a really good video.
Yeah. Yeah. All this stuff is just, it's the agenda. It's regardless of what the consequences are, this is what we need to push. This is how we're supposed to do things. And it goes, that's why I think, as far as when you say that, when people talk about the deep state, this goes so much further than just the Biden administration. It's almost like all these media companies and corporations and everything were just waiting for a Democrat to get into office and then turn on the fucking spigots and let's crank this up to not even 11. Let's crank this up to 25 and see what happens.
And I think it goes again back to watching that RFK Jr. episode again. Like I said, I'll never vote for a Republican or Democrat again. And that's a really good episode. And I think the establishment is terrified that a guy like RFK Jr. might get elected because he's a like a Robert F. Kennedy, John F. Kennedy type of Democrat. Remember, John, and it was interesting in the show, Rogan show, he goes, my uncle, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated within like around a month after he signed the order to withdraw all of our troops from Vietnam. A month later, that dude was killed. Coincidental? Again, I don't think so. But he's not the Democrat that the establishment wants. Because he's out there questioning all this stuff. And I don't know, I haven't looked into his position on, the Second Amendment, any of that stuff. But they don't want this dude, just like they don't want Trump. And in a way, in my litmus test of voting is if the deep state and the establishment doesn't want somebody, that's probably a guy everybody should think about voting for. Because why don't they want him? Again, the problem is hopefully RFK Jr. or Trump or Tulsi Gabbard, I guess Tulsi's already left. Hopefully they go off and form a third party and go at Vivek Ramaswamy. If you haven't listened to that guy, go listen to that guy. He's pretty sharp and on point with a lot of his stuff. But they're still running within the two-party system, and it's like, fuck you. That's what got us here.
Yeah. I'm to the point, and I'm a little bit apprehensive about this, but I'm to the point if it's somebody that's going to go in and just screw shit up, shake up the machine, make them uncomfortable, sort of like a Trump did without the hyperbole and the complete hot air coming out of his mouth nonstop. If it's somebody like that can go in there and just shake things up, their policy, their stance on certain policies are almost secondary to me. But like I said, I'm a little apprehensive about that because The Second Amendment one, always, whenever I say something like that, it's in the back of my head. It's always, what about the Second Amendment? Because they can go, somebody like that could go in there and do some crazy shit with that, or try to. I mean, if Biden can't get what he wants done, I mean, who knows how it goes, but it's almost secondary to me. Their policies on their foreign policy, their policies on the border, whatever it is. If they're going to go in there and the establishment doesn't want them, it's like, okay, yeah, get in there, see what happens. That was my main thing with Trump.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Second Amendment, and so we talked about it on the other show where Gavin Newsom's trying to introduce the 28th Amendment, right? He's like, to keep the Second Amendment, but they want to put limitations on it. And he did an interview, and in the interview, they asked him, why, what's up with the 28th Amendment? And he came out and said the thing that they don't like to hear. He said that the reason he's trying to push the 28th Amendment is because a bunch of their gun laws are being right. So like right now, there's when it comes to suppressors, I think there's actually 2 cases up in Illinois that have just gotten consolidated in one case, and they're before a judge that's pretty very pro Second Amendment, and they're worried that their whole the ability of them to not oppressors is going to get shot down. They're trying to say, suppressors are rare, and people and you shouldn't be able to have them because this and that. And they're like, dude, millions of people own suppressors across the country, and there ain't a bunch of crimes being committed with them, right? You have Judge Benitez down in Southern California in San Diego. He has the assault weapon. He has 3 big. There's an assault weapons bill and 2 other bills. I don't recall what they are, but they're sitting before him right now. And they're waiting on these rulings. Everybody's like, why hasn't he come out with their rulings? Well, because he's writing in the recent Supreme Court decisions of Heller and all that to into these bills that they think that he's going to overturn all the assault weapons ban, the magazine capacity ban, and all that. Which, dude, if that hits California, it's going to affect the country. And so when it comes to the Second Amendment, right now we're seeing a lot of cases that are going up, and the Supreme Court is, especially Clarence Thomas, is just slapping that shit down. He's like, no, it's not part of the Second Amendment. People are able to have that. It's the Second Amendment. It's our right. That you hear these people talking about, well, we're supposed to have a well-regulated militia, thinking that, oh no, we have a National Guard. Regulated back in the day didn't mean that you government control. That's all these fuck sticks with their totalitarianism. It meant you had a capable, ready to go into action group of people that were armed and ready to defend themselves. Same thing comes when when they get down to, oh no, it should only be muskets. No, that was never part of the deal. It's being able to defend yourself with what is available to you and what is the best thing you can defend yourself with.
They had muskets because the other guys had muskets.
That was the best technology you had at the time. And I saw Colio Noir talked about it the other day. I caught a video of his, and he says, hey, here's the deal, right? Freedom of speech isn't limited to a fucking printing press that they had back in 1776.
Yeah.
Right. Freedom of speech is by using it applies today to the technology of today. The same thing applies to and it goes with the right to search and seizure, the right to privacy and all that. It's based upon the technology of today. Same thing goes back to the muskets. Second Amendment applies to the technology of today. So when they try to come up with all this shit, they're blowing smoke out. They have no idea because they would never engage or watch anything that happened to be pro 2A, pro gun.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the suppressors thing, that is a perfect example of people that have no idea what the hell they're talking about making laws because they watched one too many James Bond movies or, paid attention to too many Hollywood movies, and they think that anybody that buys a suppressor is going around being some sort of an assassin or something like that. There's so many different uses, beneficial uses for all sorts of different gun owners, whether it's sporting, hunting, whatever, where suppressors are useful. Some people just don't want to. The noise level is one of the main factors in that.
Well, what's crazy about that is suppressors like Afghanistan really showed a lot of stuff in Iraq and the modern, illegal conflicts that are going on. Is that suppressors are super beneficial for the military. The military, by and large, has never been allowed to use them up until recent times because of that stigma society put on it and the stigma that the anti-gun movement put on it. So literally you had soldiers that were perishing, dying, getting shot up needlessly because our society is like, oh no, that's a thing assassins use.
Yeah. We've watched it. I've seen the movies. I know what it's like. Hey, in the chat here, Swersey said it's all coming down to fight or bend over. I think people are already bent over. They're spreading their butt cheeks saying, hey, you like this? Is this how you want it? Because most people are like that. Most people are like, hey, they told me to bend over, so I'm bending over. I think that's the point we're at. We're fighting the people with the heads up their asses.
I think part of the reason that you see the establishment going so deep into the paint on some of this stuff is because I think you see a lot of people being red pilled. You see a lot of people waking up to what's happening and saying, "Oh no!"
Yeah,
again,
so.
When 10 years ago, we probably would have been at odds with guys like Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, and whoever. And now they're defending our rights. We're defending like we're all kind of in the same boat. I think every day more and more people end up telling the establishment oh, I'm just done with this. Again, it gets back to that RFK interview. That RFK interview is one of the best anti-establishment interviews that I've ever heard. He puts together such a good. He has a speech impediment, so it's a little bit. He speaks a little bit rough, but it's one of the most cogent arguments and defenses of liberty and freedom and all this stuff against the establishment.
What do you? I sure hope so. What do you think the odds are that I mean, I see that there are more people getting red pilled, and I see more of this stuff coming out. But what do you think the odds are that it is bigger? Because I tend to think that we're sort of getting overpowered because you have the media, you have the loudest voices talking about all of this crap. But what are the odds that it's bigger on this side of the aisle, that red pill side of the aisle, than I give it credit for, because those voices, whether that's 20, 30, 40%, whatever that percentage is, it's amplified to make it look like it's 70% of the population, that this is the way we have to go.
Oh, I think the media. I think the media totally amplifies it. But and maybe there's more on the conservative side, but at the same time, don't forget, man, it's conservatives that keep electing Mitch McConnell. It's conservatives that keep electing fucking Marco Rubio. It's conservatives that keep electing fucking Lindsey Graham, that piece of fucking human shit. Yeah. Right. It happens over and over again. So when it comes down to, which side is doing it,
and that's kind of my point. And not even just the conservative side, like you were just talking about with the Taibis and the Greenwalds and all that stuff, the people that are just fed up with the bullshit, that sort of uprising.
Well, think about it this way, right? If you look back at the last election, right, more people voted in the last election than ever voted, right? And about half of the country chose not to vote or didn't vote. And I don't know what half was I'm intentionally not voting, but how many of that half looked at the people they had to vote for and said, I'm not into this. I'm not in this. Yeah. And I think you hear more and more people clamoring for the third party, more and more. I think they're losing people like crazy. I mean, you get back to look at Joe Rogan, right? That guy is he's always been super liberal and all that. And he's come out and said yeah, I think, he shit on Biden. Right? He's not voting for a fucking Democrat over there now on this stuff. Maybe if RFK Jr. runs, he might. But I think you have more and more people like that. They're just no, I'm done with your bullshit. And they can't. Social media, and again, a lot I think has to do with Elon buying Twitter. They can't hide this shit anymore. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, you think about, look back even 20 years. Look back to the start of the Iraq War. They sold us all on the bullshit about fucking weapons of mass destruction. Right. And we all bought it because the social media wasn't what it is today. Now, today, we see that they keep trying to sell us on the Ukraine thing. And hey, again, it's not to say that the average Ukrainian is getting fucked. 300,000+ Ukrainians have gotten needlessly fucking massacred because they're caught in a fucking they're pawns in between the U.S. and NATO and fucking Russia. Right. Yeah. But what's happening? people are seeing it, and they're and sure, you have a lot of people that are like very pro Ukraine, the government, and from that position. But you have a lot of people who, while they have this same view of like, hey, the Ukrainian people are totally getting fucked in this, that are saying, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we pushing billions of dollars? I mean, we talk about, right? We got people sleeping under every fucking bridge in America, pretty much. The bridges are crumbling. Drive across the country and see how many potholes smash your fucking car or your truck out, right? The roads are crumbling. The infrastructure is crumbling. We know that, like, hey, you take out these 10 or 20 fucking substations of these 30 substations, it could down our power grid. I mean, put your fucking thing about our infrastructure, make your checklist. And at the same time, we're sending billions of dollars and putting ourselves in greater inflation to fight a fucking proxy war in Ukraine. We're doing shit all around the world. We got people sitting here that, we got, I mean, the cost of inflation, right? Inflation went up. I think they said this month, it was like, oh, it wasn't so bad. It was only 4%. Yeah, that's on top of the 12 point whatever fucking percent it was up last year. So it's like 16%. We got people struggling in this country, and they're not doing anything, right? Because they're playing their fucking political games.
Yeah, I think more people are starting to wake up to the Democrats are starting to realize that the Democrat Party is completely different than what they thought it was and doesn't have their best interest at heart. The Republicans, conservatives are starting to figure out that the Republicans are all full of shit as well. And I think more people are starting to figure that out. The problem is, though, they don't really care. Even if it's only 30% of the people voting for them, they don't care as long as there's somebody voting for them. And the way they can manipulate shit these days, and the way that, in my opinion, that they have, that they've tweaked the system, even if it's not outright cheating. They've tweaked the system. They've gamed the system to get things done the way they want. I don't know that it really even matters all that much that 3 or 4% of the population, whatever that number would be, that decided, screw it, I'm not voting. There's nobody I like. Mm-hmm. I don't even think that matters, because they've figured out how to tweak this machine. And if they have to, then all of a sudden, we'll get a couple thousand votes that show up in the middle of the night, and we'll correct the levers there a little bit.
We could have a debate with people who don't feel that there's fuckery that goes on in our elections. We can say, all right, we can sit down and debate like, oh, the water main broke that didn't break, and then all of a sudden they kicked everybody out, and then they pulled back boxes of ballots out from under tables, and we could have the debate, say whether we think that's cheating or not. Okay, yeah, fine. I think personally, I think it's cheating. I think it's bullshit. But at the same time, okay, I'll entertain your shit. Like, tell me why it's not. But what I think we should all be able to agree on is that the intent of how our elections are supposed to be run, that's not what's happening. Therefore, while we can debate the fucking cheating that happens in an election, the overall system is so compromised. I mean, think about it. Who do you get a vote for? There is nothing about Republicans and Democrats in the fucking Constitution, that you only get 2 fucking parties. But they've twisted and stuck the knife in and twisted the fucking rules, so that way all you get to pick from is those 2 fucking assholes that they throw in front of you. Literally, I mean, you got Joe Biden. That motherfucker can't even remember what planet he's on anymore half the time.
Yeah.
And oh no, we're good. We think Joe Biden should be it.
And all he is, he's just a figurehead. It really doesn't matter who gets in there. I mean, they want somebody in there that's going to make their job easier and all that crap. And I think Biden was their only option type of thing. But there's so much bureaucracy and so much going on behind the scenes with all this crap and everybody pulling the strings. Joe Biden isn't responsible for any of this crap. But he's the one up there. He'll take credit for it. He'll lie about shit. I mean, he'll do whatever he
doesn't care.
Whatever flows out of his mouth. It really doesn't matter. And then there's other people to pick up the pieces and all that crap. So,
well, if it wasn't fucked up, you wouldn't have all these Congress people and senators showing up to Congress, and then a few years later they're broke dicks when they show up. They're making 174, give or take thousand. And a couple years later, they're fucking multimillionaires. Like we all know that's happening, and they're like, oh yeah, no, that's not happening. We all know it's happening. We know our fucking system is beyond corrupt now. We're a fucking banana republic. And as much people could hate Trump or whatever, but they're trying to lock up their opposition, and you might feel that's justified. Okay, again, then why aren't they? Then go back after Hillary, go back after all these fucking presidents, right? They're using the Espionage Act, which is the most fucked up law in like the Democrats used to whine about scream bloody murder about the Espionage Act. It's a terrible law. It allows for government overreach and all that. Oh, but when it works for them, let's sharpen those tools.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we are now with this whole system. And as American citizens, we're secondary to all of this crap that's going on. I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, whatever. We are secondary. This machine runs in spite of us. It needs us to, the oil in the machine, basically, the lubrication to make the machine run. But other than that, they could give a crap. They're up there lining their pockets. Is Cortez a millionaire yet? I bet you she is, right?
I don't know what she's at. Yeah, I'm not sure what she's at. I have to look.
Mrs. Bartender could barely afford her apartment. I guarantee you, I'll bet you, I won't guarantee you, I'll bet you she's a millionaire. Or she's pretty damn close to it at this point. Because she got further than I ever thought she would. I thought she was an idiot and a blowhard, just like Trump was, but on the other end of the spectrum, and wouldn't last very long. But here we are. And, the idiots that vote for these people, I'll tell you what, the idiots that keep voting for Nancy Pelosi, the idiots that keep voting for Lindsey Graham, the idiots that keep voting for all these yahoos that are just in there, even McCarthy and all those guys that will go up there and say one thing and then completely do another thing. And people's minds are so short-sighted that they forget about all this crap. And then as long as he's wearing my team colors, I'm for it. It's our fault, man, that these idiots are still in there. I cannot believe that Ocasio-Cortez is still in there and gets voted in, but she does.
Yeah. So. This is according to Forbes, posted June 17th, 2023. Well, I don't know if it's according to Forbes. This website here, I can't, Calculabindia, I don't know. Congressman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has a net worth of $13 million US dollars.
13 million.
So $13 million, annual salary of 174 income, 1 million donations, 850,000 stock portfolio, 5 million monthly spends, 130,000 luxury watches, 10 over 10 cars, 3 taxes paid, $11,000. So this is under a website called Net Worth Club. So again, who knows if they have an axe to grind or something like March 24th. It's what does this one say here? This is Yahoo. See, they keep all the left-leaning websites that I just looked through all go back to her stats at from 2018. They're not talking about stats from today. In 2018, she was worth, $100,000 or a couple $100,000. So what that one just said, she's worth 13 million or whatever it is.
It's so frustrating that what has she been in there 6-7 years, something like that? Not very long. And all of a sudden, what a job, right? I guess it's worth it to lie, cheat, and steal to get. Well,
there's a reason why people spend $1 million on a campaign to go become a congressman that pays $174,000 a year.
Yeah. Pieces of shit, all of them.
Yeah.
We'll see where it all goes, though. It's going to be interesting coming up in this next election, because I don't have any hope. I'm almost reserved to the fact that it's going to go the opposite way that I want it to go, and there's no way around that. Regardless, if Reagan or JFK or Eisenhower or somebody got resurrected and ran against Biden, still wouldn't matter. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Got it so shaded out.
In my because I'm not always convinced that we're not all, like you're all part of my simulation that's going on right now. You're like NPCs in my simulation. So my crazy simulation is they convict Trump, but there's nothing that says a felon can't run for president. So they convict Trump, they put him in prison. Trump gets elected president and then pardons himself and goes in there and gives them all the fucking bird. And then he goes after Biden and he unleashes the hounds on everybody. We'll see.
Yeah. Great. He was supposed to release the hounds last time though. So I'm not.
Yeah.
Either.
I don't believe it either. But at the same time, I think a lot of when he got in there, I think Trump is so cocky that he didn't realize like what he was up against with the deep state and all the bullshit. I mean,
shitheads he was surrounded.
Yeah, the shitheads. I mean, you got, Bill Barr runs out there and runs his mouth all the time, which look into Bill Barr's father. Bill Barr's father worked at the Dalton School. Bill Barr's father was the guy who was one of the guys him and Leslie Wexner, the Victoria's Secrets guy, were the guys who got Epstein into the business, right? Bill Barr was attorney general and all this shit. Did he go after the people on Epstein's little black book? No. Why? Because they probably got Bill Barr with some, with some little kid's mouth somewhere, got pictures of that shit, right? They're all part of this whole fucking thing. So yeah, I think he went in there. We'll see, if he gets in, like, does he go in there and who does he bring in? But do you honestly think that like Congress are going to try to stop him from doing it? I mean, that they're going to try to let him do anything? I mean, my understanding was the second impeachment, right before he was getting out of office, they tried to impeach him for the second time. Let's not forget what the first impeachment over was, a bad phone call that they said was bad about Ukraine, right? And the guy who brought it, Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman or whatever, is now like a fucking talking head on MSNBC and CNN and all that, right? The second one, he was going to pardon Assange and he was going to pardon Snowden. And Rubio, my understanding is Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and somebody else went to him and said, if you pardon them, and I think he was going to release all the JFK files. And they said, if you do that, we're going to vote to impeach you when it comes to us. And that's why he didn't do it. So if he gets elected, watch what happens on day one, because I think you're going to see a bunch of pardons. I think you see that dude just go to fucking town.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting regardless what happens.
Jammer wrote in the chat, maybe it's just all WWE. It pretty much is now.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it is like we don't even need Hollywood or Netflix or whatever, all these different shows anymore. You've got just American Life is the craziest fiction movie. Just start writing this shit down and then, tell your kids about it and they'll be like, what movie was that?
Yeah.
So, at any rate, we are going to get out of here tonight, everyone. Jammer, everyone else in the chat, appreciate y'all joining in. Even though I kind of screwed it up in the beginning, I scheduled the show later because I was thinking that we were, I've been doing too many 6 o'clock shows, 6 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
And then just scheduled this one for 6, thinking I had a brain fart. Then Brian texted me at 5 o'clock. He's like, "We doing a show tonight?" Like,
hey, make sure everybody make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also give us a like on this over here on Rumble, because it helps get the notifications out, helps build the channel. And hey, Rumble along with Twitter, this is at least the current future of, this is the most non-censored you're going to get on the internet when it comes to social media and the YouTube type stuff and all that. Yeah.
And it's just getting worse. So we'll see. And as soon as, not saying that it will be, but as soon as Rumble starts to go that route too, if they do, we'll find another place to go live. So got to keep getting the word out. So at any rate, we appreciate it, everyone. Appreciate y'all joining in tonight. We will, next show will be at our 5 o'clock time slot. You can't even say 7 o'clock Eastern time.
I think maybe you're related to Biden with your head.
I don't know where his button is, but that's not it,
man. Come on, man.
I was looking for my true and nothing impression or whatever it was, but at any rate, take care and prepare, everyone. We will talk to you all later. Oops, I put the picture up too early. Anyway, bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Survival Preppers. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to join us on YouTube for our weekly live shows. For more information or to connect with Duff and Dale, visit thesurvivalpreppers.com or thebugoutlocation.com for members-only content and prepping courses. See everyone next time.